Our next guest is Oceanside Councilmember Jerry Kern, who's also serving on the Community Engagement Panel for the decommissioning of the San Onofre power plant. Welcome to the show, Councilmember.
Good. Call it songs. That way you don't stumble.
Songs. Yeah, I don't have to
San
stumble.
Onofre nuclear power.
It's my Midwest roots showing,
I was
as Melanie is reminding
calling it
me.
San Onofre, so I remember what it really is.
Yes.
Where are we at with this project?
Well, right now we're decommissioning. There's a bill before Congress. Darrell Issa, Congressman Issa, our congressman, has a bill, H.R. 474, which is the Consolidated Interim Storage Act. What it really does is modify the 1982 Nuclear Waste Act so the Department of Energy can take possession of the fuel to go to temporary storage. The original act written in 82 said the Department of Energy was going to take possession when it goes to permanent storage, Yucca Mountain. And it was going to do that by 1998, believe it or not. Obviously that didn't happen, but there was no other way to do it. I mean, there was all the eggs were in one basket. Yucca Mountain, for a variety of reasons, some of it geologic, some of it political, just not going to happen. Now, it may be revived with the new administration, but I'm not holding my breath on that because I don't want to put all our eggs in one basket again. So there's two sites, one in New Mexico and one in Texas. But actually, in reality, they're only 25 miles apart. Holcomb, New Mexico and Andrews County, Texas. If you drew a line between El Paso and Odessa, and where it clips that corner of New Mexico, that's the site. Very geologically stable, very thinly populated. Right now, San Onofre is sitting within 120 miles of 8 million people. So it's a much better place to put it in Texas. And you don't have to worry about sea level rise, you don't have to worry about seismic events. So we're really pushing for that, myself and the panel.
Could I just ask you, because there's a lawsuit that's coming to a court hearing next week from a group that feels like Edison, who manages San Onofre, really should have explored other options more before deciding just to bury it on site. And they say that there is opportunities in Arizona, for example, where Edison has other power plants that they could have moved. Why is that not something that was more
the idea of the permitted
thoroughly
sites,
thought through?
I mean, the idea that they'd have to go through the permitting process to take fuel in. So the idea right now is to go through the consolidated storage sites. So putting it on site, I understand what they're trying to say. I mean, they're actually filing the lawsuit against the Coastal Commission's permit to put it at San Onofre for 20 years. I guess the permits for 20 years. But there's no other option right now. The only other option, if they happen to win that case, is to leave the fuel in the pools. Now, right now, the spent fuel is in the cooling ponds inside the domes itself. So, and they're scheduled to start being pulled out of those pools by the end of this year, and by the end of next year, all the fuel will be out of the cooling ponds into the dry cask storage. And so
On site.
On site, and then I am pushing to have it all moved off-site. So we're still looking at probably 2023, 2024 before they start moving that fuel to another location.
I mean, do you think that, I mean, the Coastal Commission said we'll give you the permit for 20 years and then we'll review it. But I mean, is there any chance that something will have been found before 20 years is up?
Well, I'm hopeful the idea that HR 474 gets pushed forward. Now, it's got bipartisan support. Actually, I've talked to Scott Peters, Representative Peters, about it about a month ago, and he's for it. And so you have support on both sides of the aisle. Representative Mimi Walters, who used to represent this district as the assembly person, is the representative on just north of Congressman Isis, and she's on the Energy and Commerce Commission, as is Scott Peters, and they're the ones going to hear this. So the idea that and it's going to come up hopefully shortly before the Commerce Commission and get approval.
Does ISA, has he given you any sense of how the path is once it gets through committee?
I think there's bipartisan support across the board for this. So
I mean, do you think this year it might pass within the next 12 months?
I would hope so.
I mean, things move so slowly with nuclear waste.
Nobody can tell what Congress is going to do or when they're going to do it. I mean, they're kind of, they go to their own drummer there. I mean, some things I just don't understand what they do and how they do it. But I would hope, and I'm praying that the idea that they will bring it up this year in committee and get it out by the end of the legislative session to the next House, to the Senate, and where it has strong support from Senator Feinstein. So hopefully it'll get to the president and be signed here within the next 18 months. But
And in the
that
meantime,
may be wishful thinking.
But you think the process of burying the spent fuel now in the meantime is better than just leaving it in the pools?
Yeah, I think putting it in the cast and getting it ready to go. What I'm working with now, and I'm working with Senator Bates and Assemblymember Chavez, is some type of a transportation plan. They're going to have these casts, and they're going to be heavy. There's about 30,000 pounds each, and they're going to put them on rail cars. Well, they haven't designed the rail cars and the overpacks yet for these new canisters. So hopefully that'll happen. And we have about 1,600 tons of this stuff at San Onofre. But there's a larger problem. There's 73,000 tons of spent nuclear rods throughout the nation. And some of them are at old sites, decommissioned sites, and they're just sitting there.
Seems like the transportation issue is one of the things that killed Yucca Mountain, is just even getting it there. People were really uncomfortable with the idea of moving that kind of material, right?
Yes, I mean, so
Yeah.
it's going to take an effort by everybody, the permitting, the Department of Transportation, the California Department of Transportation, California Department of Energy, everybody needs to be on board to move this. But everybody moving in the same direction, but they're all kind of moving at different speeds.
It seemed to me that the biggest obstacle to Yucca Mountain was Senator Reed, who is now retired.
Yeah.
Given that he's retired, do you hear any talks about Yucca Mountain being revived?
Yes, we've been hearing that. I haven't seen anything, but there was also some underlying geological issues with that. It's on fractured rock that's underlying. So right now, I think the Texas and New Mexico side are the best as far as stability.
but I had thought the Republican bill was based on the premise that you had to have Yucca Mountain as the final resting place, if
Yeah,
you will,
and that's-
before you do the interim storage.
And that's the law, and that's the law that HR 474 wants
Yeah.
to change, is to amend that. So Department of
okay.
Energy, Department of Energy can take possession for an interim storage.
Without
Nobody
having Yucca
defined what
Mountain.
interim is, though. I mean, when you have a material that the half-life is 10,000 years, so you keep it in Texas for 250 years, is that still interim? So there's going to
So
have to be
ISIS
solved.
bill does not require Yucca Mountain to be reinstated?
no.
Okay, well, that's
And then we also have Diablo Canyon, which is going to go through its decommissioning process here within the next year. So they're going to have the same issue up there. And Diablo Canyon is a much more geologically unstable area. They're much more threatened at Diablo Canyon. We just have one fault here, the Rose Canyon, Englewood, Newport fault that runs off the coast. And actually under Diablo Canyon, it's fractured. It has like 6 or 7 faults that they can identify. So we're looking, they need to get that one solved too. So this would solve it for a lot of nuclear sites if we can move it to this interim site. And we have the other site, a decommissioned site at Rancho Seco, which is just south of Sacramento, that is a decommissioned site, and there's nuclear fuel sitting at Rancho Seco. So this would solve a lot of problems.
To change the subject on you, if I might,
Anytime, Ken.
sand dredging, where are we at?
Which one?
Sand dredging, where are we at?
Well, actually, we hired the old contractor back. Last year, we hired a contractor that wasn't able to do the job. The dredge was too small. They got started late. Couldn't operate in anything over a 3-foot swell. And during the summertime, we have a south-facing harbor, and we get southerly swells come up that run 3 to 4 feet all the time. Right now, we're bringing back the big dredge, and the company that did it before. They will be in probably the last week of May, and they will be out by the first week of June. Because the dredge is that much bigger. And not only that, the city of Oceanside actually has $600,000 set aside to actually tag onto the permit so we can actually get more sand pumped out of the harbor.
So it was the Army Corps that chose this other contractor, right? And I know the city was very vocal about their
It was a
unhappiness.
bureaucratic mess. The idea the Army Corps went through the program, it's an Army Corps contract, but they had to use SBA rules. So the SBA rules actually gave favoritism to a woman-owned company. Now, they're very good at doing river dredging and protected harbor dredging, but they couldn't do the exposed dredging that, that's required at Oceanside. So we're going to be back, we're going to have really nice beaches this summer.
What about the pier? We all see these big blue tarps hanging over the pier. Will that be over before the tourists arrive?
Yes, I mean, the idea that's an old pier, and what happened to the pier, concrete's very porous, and it's a rebar, steel reinforced structure. The salt water gets into the concrete and it hits that rebar. And then the rebar starts to rust. When it starts to rust, it starts to expand. And so what you have is called sprawling. So you'd be walking on the pier and the concrete would just pop off. So now they've gone back, they've got down to the rebar, they've taken off the rust, they're refinishing that, and then they're putting the concrete back. So it should be all finished by summertime.
I spoke to an engineer in Oceanside who said it should last another 10 years, but that's not that long. Do we have millions of dollars to build a new pier if this one is defunct in 10 years?
No, and we were hoping to actually get some state money to do that because they have money for bridges. But they don't really classify that as a bridge, even though it crosses the Strand. Hey, it's a bridge over the Strand. They said, no, this is all on us. I imagine it's going to be an ongoing problem, that they're going to have to maintain it. I mean, it was built as a WPA project back in the 30s, and so it's lasted a long time. I think we're going to have to keep an eye on it, on the maintenance of it. We are, speaking of bridges, we're in the process of trying to rebuild the bridge across San Luis Rey River at Pacific Street. There was a meeting the other day about the possible sites of that.
And the federal government will give us money for that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and federal and state funds will be going forward with that, but we're going to have to come up with some money too, just like the other bridge at Pacific Street across the San Luis Rey. We had to match some funding there. So it's done. So that'll happen. I mean, the idea that I know some people want to save it for aesthetic reasons or historic reasons, but no, this is a transportation bridge and it needs to be fixed.
So when will you settle on that design? I know you looked at 4 different ones.
I don't know. I mean, right now, we're trying to figure out what the route is. Because right now, they want to keep the existing bridge open while they
During
build a new
construction,
bridge.
right.
Because we can't take it down because it's such an artery. So they're going to build a bridge a little bit to the west of the existing bridge. But now, in order to do that, we have to eminent domain some pieces at either end. On the north side is the old, is owned by the Carpenter family, and on the south side is owned by Dr. Patel for the Flying Bridge. So we've worked out a deal with the Flying Bridge. Actually, he's going to scrape and rebuild that hotel. And so he's pulled it back, knowing that we're going to eventually come in and do that. So it's been a pretty friendly, open process to take that. So it's going to come in, be a partial taking of his land where it darts back in and connects with the Coast Highway. And so he pulled his hotel back a little bit from the street so that it can accommodate.
Is the restaurant site there open? Did anyone ever go in after the Flying Bridge closed?
The Flying Bridge closed, and then they had somebody that tried it for a while, but it didn't happen. So he's actually, it's going to be the nice design. They're going to pull it back. It's going to be 2-story. It's going to have a really nice restaurant that looks down the river over the harbor. It's going to be one of the premier places in town to go for dinner visually. Hopefully the food's good.
We've got about a minute left, Jerry. Give us your quick take on the necessity of district elections in Oceanside.
Well, I don't think they're necessary, but we got served, and so no city has won that lawsuit against districting. Palmdale lost, and Palmdale was our kind of a mirror to Oceanside because they were a charter city also. So we will be going to district. Our first meeting in May, we're going to bring that forward, and the clock is starting. I think probably, and I talked to Tom Reeser about this, that you probably should have John Mullen come in, the city attorney, and talk about the districting, and he can explain all of that, because we're in this legal time frame. We have about 45 days to do something, and we have another 130 days to get everything done. So we will be districts by August 1st. Now, the 2 seats that are up immediately are mine and the deputy mayor's, and so those will be up in 2018. What they look like, I don't know.
Good luck with that. Thank you very much for coming in tonight.